Welcome to Day 3 of Plate Boundaries, page 120 for Chapter 3, Lesson 4, Plate Boundaries. Looks like this. You need to have your pencil, your blue and red pen, or colored pencils or crayon, but you also need your highlighter today because we're going to be doing the Phase 2 processing after we do the Phase 1 take notes. The Ring of Fire. Notice I have my AVID themed paperweights to keep my paper in place. Hopefully that'll work today. Skip a little line. Ring, capital R-I-N-G, of fire, capital F-I-R-E. Switch to the pencil. Many earthquakes and volcanoes occur in a zone that borders the Pacific Ocean. Okay, the Ring of Fire borders, B-O-R-D-E-R-S. Pacific, capital P-A-C-I-F-I-C, Ocean, capital O-C-E-A-N. For that reason, this zone has been named the Ring of Fire. Okay, so what borders the Pacific Ocean is called the Ring of Fire because many, M-A-N-Y, earthquakes, E/Q, and down 3 down, volcanoes, V-O-L, C-A-N-O-E-S. It extends from the eastern coast of Asia, that's over here where Japan is, China, the Philippines, and off the coast of Australia, across the northern Pacific, up here by Russia, parts of Russia, the eastern part of Russia, the Aleutian Islands in Alaska, Canada, and down the west coasts of North America, the coasts of North and South America. So down the coast of North America, where California, Oregon, and Washington are, down along Mexico and Central America, and now South America, down here where Peru and other countries are. The Ring of Fire outlines the Earth's subduction zones. As the map shows, the Pacific Plate converges with several continental plates along the Ring of Fire. Okay, so looking on here, you can see the black lines are the plate boundaries. The orange is that Ring of Fire, and the red circles are volcanoes. Notice how the orange band is right along all the black lines of the plate boundaries. And notice that all these volcanoes are right along those zones. So when the plate moves, and for example, the Pacific Plate moves towards this continent, and this continental plate moves towards it, it gets subducted. And that subduction was like this. Okay, so out here you have Hawaii, and the plate's moving under. Here's the coast of California. Well, you end up getting a lot of hot magma rising up through and creating volcanoes. So that's how we get volcanoes down in Chile. That's how we get volcanoes near the rift, like Hawaii. All the way down here in New Zealand. Mount Fuji in Japan. There's a Mount St. Helens up here in, I think it's Washington. Lots and lots of volcanoes. Okay, now on the Asian side, it looks more like, actually this is what it looks like in Hawaii, right? So here's what it would look like in Hawaii. You have a trench underneath the ocean, that's getting subducted, and all that lava coming up creates islands out in the middle of the water, and that's how we get the Hawaiian Islands. Okay, so outlines the subduction zones. That's very important. Sub, S-U-B, duction, D-U-C-T-I-O-N, zones, Z-O-N-E-S. Faulting during subduction causes earthquakes and can also lead to volcanic activity. So faults are the cracks in the ground. So what they're saying is when all these cracks and rifts form during subduction, in other words, while one plate is being pushed underneath the other plate, there's a lot of earthquakes. These two things are pushing together, they squeeze against each other, eventually they pop and let loose, and those gigantic, huge pops are earthquakes. And then it also leads to volcanic activity, as in the little diagram we looked at 2 pages earlier. Okay. As you have learned, subduction zones are associated with deep ocean trenches. Deep ocean trenches, okay. So, what they're saying is, out in the ocean, when one plate subducts under the other, you end up with a deep ocean trench where the two meet. Okay. As the subducting plate sinks into the mantle, it melts to form magma. The magma may later rise to the surface, forming a line of volcanoes that often parallels the trench. Ah, okay. So, in the subduction zones, the subducting plate, S-U-B, D-U-C-T-I-N-G, plate, P-L-A-T-E, sinks into the mantle, melts to form magma. Subducting plate into, I-N-T-O, indent, mantle, M-A-N-T-L-E, arrow, magma, M-A-G-M-A, arrow, V-O-L-C, period. So the subducting plate goes down into the mantle, melts to become magma, and eventually can rise and burst through the crust as a volcano. Let's look at the picture. The subducting crust goes down into the mantle, can get really hot from all the pressure and friction, turns into magma, which is lighter and hotter, rises, and eventually can burst through the crust as a volcano. Okay, not all earthquakes and volcanoes occur along the Ring of Fire. Remember, diverging plates also cause earthquakes and volcanoes. Diverging boundaries are usually located near the middle of ocean basins. Right, so there is diverging right there. You can see the line down in the ocean where it's diverging and spreading apart. At these boundaries, magma rises to the surface between separating plates, creating volcanic mountain ridges. Faulting at the ridges leads to earthquakes. Okay, so at a mid-ocean ridge, the plates are spreading apart. Remember, because of the convection currents, the magma underneath swirling to the left, this one swirling to the right, spreading them apart. Magma rises up from in between, and once it gets up to the top and cools, it piles up and can become little mountains that stay underneath the water. And as it keeps spreading apart, those mountains keep growing. Well, also, those things are so big that they're going to have faulting, cracking, deforming, and that causes earthquakes as well. This pattern of earthquakes and volcanoes along plate boundaries is further evidence in support of plate tectonics. So the fact that all this activity is happening at the boundaries helps us understand that there really are plates, and the plates really are moving, either spreading apart or crashing into each other. Okay, so activity, A-C-T-I-V-I-T-Y, at, letter A and then circle it, boundaries, B-O-U-N-D-A-R-I-E-S. All that activity is happening at the plate boundaries. All right, pictures. Earthquakes and volcanoes are especially common around the Pacific Ocean, forming the Ring of Fire. Okay, the Ring of Fire is around the Pacific Ocean. There's a lot of activity at those plate boundaries. At the subduction zones, the subducting plate goes down into the mantle, melts to become magma, and creates volcanoes. And then there's many earthquakes and volcanoes along the Ring of Fire. What creates volcanoes in the Ring of Fire? Okay, we just said that. The phenomena, just kidding. The phenomena that creates volcanoes in the Ring of Fire is subduction. For example, zoop, the subducting plate gets pushed down into the mantle, zoop, melts into magma, zoop, and can eventually rise and burst through the crust as volcanoes. Okay, so we can answer this question with our notes. That means we're done. All right, now, phase 2, processing. Okay, phase 2, processing. Remember, we are highlighting and sometimes annotating. We are looking for key details that support the main idea. Okay, say that in your brain. Phase 2 processing is highlighting and annotating to find key details that support the main idea. All right, let's go back and let's read. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. First, we do these, and then we do it by ourselves also, right? So let's look at the visual summary they give us. The movement of tectonic plates causes changes on Earth's surface. Okay, plates move. Let's see, plate interactions move very slowly, so plates move. Changes. Here we go. Change. These changes include earthquakes, volcanoes, and mountain building. Earthquakes, volcanoes, mountain building was part of that etc. that we talked about. Do we have mountain building anywhere? There's mountain building. All occur in California. Okay, they don't mean it only occurs in California. What they mean is California has all of these things happening. So, let's put capital C, capital A, has, H-A-S, all, A-L-L, of, O-F, these, T-H-E-S-E, arrow to that. Highlight that. So California has all of these. We have earthquakes, we have volcanoes, we have mountain building, all of the above. All right, plate boundaries can be convergent, divergent, or transform fault. Okay, the three names, convergent, divergent, transform fault. Earthquakes and volcanic eruptions are common along many plate boundaries. Okay, so all that activity is common along the boundaries. Let's see. Oh, I know where we said that, ring of fire. There's activity at the boundaries. Okay. Now, another thing, those three names, let's highlight them here because there was an entire section about convergent, an entire section about divergent, and an entire section about transform fault. Many earthquakes and volcanoes occur in subduction zones around the Pacific Ocean. So, around the Pacific Ocean, many earthquakes, volcanoes, subduction zones. This set of zones is called the ring of fire. Boom. All right, now let's go back and annotate the even more important stuff that we think ties to the main idea. Okay, main idea. Movement along plate boundaries causes geologic events such as earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and mountain building. So movement, boundaries, geologic events. Those are the three things we're looking for. Okay, let's see. Movement, geologic events or changes, geologic events, plate boundaries. Here's the names of them, right? It says plate boundaries there. Those are the names. Geologic events, subduction zones, that's at plate boundaries, and activity at the boundaries. So that's geologic events and that's boundaries. Okay, so a lot of the stuff we highlighted, it is also stuff that we want to annotate to try to get into our paragraph. So our paragraph, it's going to sound something like, there's movement on the plate boundaries that causes geologic events such as earthquakes, volcanoes, and mountain building. The plates move very slowly, but can cause sudden change when there are earthquakes, volcanoes, and other geologic events. There are three types of plate boundaries, convergent, zoop, divergent, zoop, and transform fault. Convergent means the plates are pushing together. Zoop, divergent means the plates are pulling apart. Zoop, and transform means the plates are sliding past one another. For convergent plates, zoop, a subduction zone is created. The subducting plate goes underneath, turns into magma, and can erupt as a volcano. This causes a lot of activity at the plate boundaries. The ring of fire around the Pacific Ocean is one example. Okay, something like that. All right, now we have to worry about our phase 3. I know, and then I predict or I wonder. So, something I know, right? It cannot come from this piece of paper. It has to come from your brain. It's something related to this. Maybe you know something about the mountains in California. Maybe you know something about earthquakes or volcanoes in our region near California, Oregon, and Washington. Maybe you have seen these cracks driving over the hills in California. Maybe you've seen a documentary about these kind of things. For example, the Mariana Trench. Or maybe you've seen something about the Hawaiian Islands and how they form. Let's see, what else might we know? Ooh, the Great Rift Valley in Africa. Maybe you've seen a documentary about the kind of animals that live there, or how people survive when the earth is like splitting open on a continent. Okay, what else? Ring of Fire. Maybe you have watched something on National Geographic about the Ring of Fire. Okay, so something you know in your brain that is kind of related to what we just learned. I predict. What do I predict? They're teaching us about all these plates. Remember how they said there's earthquakes, volcanoes, and mountain building, but we're going to learn more about those in the next lesson? It said that. What page did it say that on? Aha. Remember on page 119? You will learn much more about earthquakes, volcanoes, and mountain building when you read the next chapter. So I predict that the next chapter or the next set of lessons is going to tell us more about earthquakes, volcanoes, and mountain building. They're going to take all this stuff we know about the plates and teach us details about the geologic events that happen when those plates move. Or, I wonder. Okay, what can we wonder about? I wonder something about mountain building, maybe. I wonder, we could talk about how long it takes to build mountains, how tall the mountains can get. All right. Something I wonder why there's mountain building at the subduction zones, and there are mountains under the ocean at the mid-ocean ridge where it spreads apart. There's mountains in both places. Okay. Anything else we could wonder? You could wonder about the Ring of Fire around the Pacific Ocean. Well, the Pacific Ocean is a famous ocean, but there's also the Atlantic Ocean. I wonder if there's a similar phenomena around the Atlantic Ocean where there are plates subducting and causing a lot of volcanoes. I wonder what other countries in the world experience a lot of earthquakes, volcanoes, and mountain building. Okay, so that's how you do your Phase 3 Connect. Something I know that is not on this piece of paper, and then something I predict about what's going to come next, or what I can use this to predict something else, or something I wonder, something that they didn't teach me and I have a question about. All right, good job persevering with a growth mindset. Roar Wildcats!